If you grew up in the 1980s, you didn't just live through a decade, you lived through a cultural explosion. The 80s weren't quiet, they weren't subtle, they were loud, neon-colored, electrified, and unforgettable. Imagine your childhood condensed into a single moment, the sound of a Walkman rewinding, the glow of Saturday morning cartoons, the clunk of a VHS tape being pushed into a VCR, and the feel of summer air as you rode your bike until the streetlights flickered on. If just thinking about that hits you like a warm wave of nostalgia, buckle in. You're about to remember exactly why the 80s still live rent-free in your heart. 1. Saturday morning cartoons. If you were a kid in the 80s, Saturday mornings were sacred. You didn't sleep in. You jumped out of bed before anyone else just to claim your spot on the carpet. Shows like He-Man, Thundercats, The Smurfs, and Inspector Gadget weren't just episodes, they were weekly events. There was no streaming, no on-demand, no "I'll watch it later." You watched it when it aired, or you missed it forever. That scarcity made every episode feel like gold. Picture a child with a cereal bowl the size of their face, eyes locked on a glowing TV box. That scene is forever burned into the memory of every 80s kid. 2. VHS tapes and video rental stores. The sound alone brings back the era. VHS tapes were chunky, rewinding was mandatory, and every home had shelves full of movies, bought, recorded, or borrowed from neighbors. But nothing beat the thrill of video rental stores. Walking into a store filled with colorful VHS covers, the smell of carpet and plastic, rushing to grab the last new release, those moments were magic. The famous sticker, "Be kind, rewind," wasn't just a reminder, it was a philosophy of the decade. 3. The Walkman and mixtape culture. The 80s gave kids their first taste of portable freedom, the Walkman. Those orange foam headphones were practically a cultural symbol. Making a mixtape wasn't simply recording songs, it was emotional engineering. Sitting by the radio, finger ready to hit record, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro, felt like a high-stakes mission. The Walkman turned kids into curators of their own identity long before playlists existed. One cassette could define your entire week. 4. Playing outside until the streetlights came on. The 80s were the golden age of outdoor childhood. No smartphones, no constant tracking, no digital distractions. You played outside until the streetlights turned on, and that rule felt sacred. Hide and seek that lasted hours, biking all over the neighborhood, climbing trees, building forts, inventing games with ridiculous rules. Childhood was unsupervised, unfiltered, and unforgettable. The universal symbol of friendship? A pile of bikes outside someone's house. 5. Cereal boxes with toys inside. Breakfast in the 80s was practically a treasure hunt. Cereal boxes weren't just food, they were toy dispensers. Kids would dig into the box before pouring the cereal, desperately searching for a tiny surprise. Stickers, miniature cars, glow-in-the-dark toys, or plastic figurines. Cereal commercials were hyperactive masterpieces designed to hypnotize kids. Even today, the excitement of pulling a toy from a cereal box triggers instant nostalgia. 6. Arcades and quarter-saving adventures. Arcades were the heartbeat of 80s youth culture. Rows of glowing screens, the chorus of 8-bit soundtracks, and the metallic clatter of coins created a world unlike anything else. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga, and later Street Fighter fueled friendly rivalries and unforgettable afternoons. Kids would save quarters for weeks just for an hour of gameplay. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a social universe where skills, bragging rights, and friendships were built. 7. Polaroid cameras and instant memories. The Polaroid wasn't perfect, but it was magical. One click, one flash, one photo. You didn't take dozens, you took one and waited for it to reveal itself. That slow emergence of the image was pure anticipation. Those slightly faded, grainy photos ended up on refrigerators, in scrapbooks, tucked inside mirrors, and traded between friends. They were the original instant memories, and holding one still feels like holding a piece of time. 8. 80s fashion, the loudest decade ever. The 80s were visually fearless. Big hair, neon colors, spandex, leg warmers, denim jackets, aviators, scrunchies, windbreakers, shoulder pads large enough to make anyone look like a superhero. Every outfit was a statement, and MTV amplified everything. Music videos shaped trends. Kids mimicked the looks of Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, and every bright, bold aesthetic that dominated screens. Fashion wasn't just clothing, it was an era of expressive rebellion. 9. Early home computers and floppy disk life. If you grew up in the 80s, you witnessed the beginning of the digital revolution. Monochrome monitors, floppy disks the size of notebooks, basic programming classes, typing games in school labs, it all felt futuristic. Computers weren't everywhere yet, so using one felt special, even powerful. Kids who typed simple code lines like "print hello" felt like hackers. The birth of home computing shaped a generation that would eventually build the modern internet. 10. The movies that defined a generation. Back to the Future, E.T., Ghostbusters, The Goonies, Ferris Bueller, The Terminator. These films didn't just entertain, they defined the decade and shaped childhood around them. Families gathered for movie nights, theaters were packed, and VHS tapes were watched until the film inside practically wore out. The iconic lines, characters, and adventures still live today because they were more than movies, they were shared emotional landmarks. The meaning behind the memories. Growing up in the 80s wasn't just about the things we had, it was about how everything felt. The decade radiated freedom, creativity, adventure, and community. It was a childhood built on imagination, exploration, and community. These memories stick with us not because they were perfect, but because they were alive. If you grew up in the 80s, these aren't just memories, they're part of who you are.